Hello, Tova community. This is Dr. Nina. I'm back for another Tova Tuesday on Tova Health TV. On Tova Tuesdays, this is a space where we talk to healthcare professionals in our community and discuss healthcare issues to help promote you to live an optimal life and wellness, and also have it done with a holistic approach. I am Dr. Nina, Executive Director of Tova Community Health. I provide primary specialty care services for individuals with complex chronic conditions like sickle cell trait. I wanted to talk to you guys today about a topic that is dear to my heart, which is seasonal depression. And the topic today is how we can beat seasonal blues. Now, summer is over, the leaves are changing, fall is approaching, and the days are getting shorter. The weather is getting colder, and sometimes we can just go into a sadness, a deep sadness from this as the holidays are coming up. We're in the middle of a pandemic. Some of us have lost our jobs, our finances are very tight. And all of these things together can affect our physical health, but also lead to depression. So today, I'm very grateful because I have a fantastic individual who owns a servant's heart, who is also a clinical social worker and a huge advocate for breaking the stigma of mental health. Mrs. Tamara Sumpter. Welcome to Tova Tuesday. How are you today?
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me here today. I also thank you for highlighting this. It is a concern. I think that it's an unspoken concern at times. You know, everyone does kind of tend to brush it off as it'll go away. It's passing, but it's definitely something that needs to be addressed and highlighted. So I thank you for taking the time to do that.
Thank you so much. So everyone, a little bit about Tamara. She also provides our therapeutic group services that we have that are done virtually. And I'm very grateful for her help that she provides to us. But Tamara, I wanted to tell you that she grew up in Puerto Rico and also resided most of her life in the United States. She speaks Spanish. She's an advocate for Afro-Latino and Latino issues in healthcare. She's a graduate of HBCUs, Cheney University, as well as Delaware State University, and she was the class president in 2015. That was a huge undertaking, I'm sure. Tamara loves to travel. I don't think she stays in Delaware, especially on the weekends. She's a huge advocate for self-care, which is something that I, as a healthcare provider and an essential worker, sometimes neglect. And she loves to spend time with her family and friends. Tamara, welcome to the show today. So let's get started. Can you talk about seasonal depression? What is it?
So seasonal depression oftentimes happens when, as you stated before, when our days start to get shorter, it starts to get darker out sooner, earlier. Our time falls back. And so that can have an adverse effect on your mental health, you having a sense of sadness, actually. It affects about 5% of Americans. And it's a time. And one of the things that I think that isn't as highly discussed in seasonal depression is the seasons, and as you mentioned, it is a time a lot of times for family and gatherings, and now with the pandemic, as well as, unfortunately, some of our families have lost loved ones. And when I say loss in two fashions, it may not be loss to a death, it could be loss in a broken relationship, a severed relationship. And so all of these aspects can come together and give you what we usually attribute to gloominess. Oh, it's dark out, it's rainy, I just don't feel myself. But it can be a form of depression.
Wow. And so this is attributed to the seasons changing, but also, as you mentioned, it cannot just be a death, but it can be a loss of a relationship or a breakup. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. I think sometimes when we discuss losses and things like that, most times our mind goes to unfortunate death of some sort. But, there is a loss. I've seen many parents whose teens have gone off to college, and that's almost a loss.
Yeah.
And now with the pandemic, there's this distancing that takes place between families and loved ones, and that's a loss. So whenever there's an absence of someone's presence for whatever the reason is, that loss can bring some emotional instability. And so we like to address that and recognize it and validate it, because it's very valid.
So, what are some of the symptoms of seasonal depression or seasonal blues?
So the clinical symptoms are fatigue, there's depression, hopelessness, there's a withdrawal. A lot of times you'll have that sense of, I don't want to get out of the bed. I just want to lay on the sofa all day. And I think it's a prolonged period of time that, because every so often you do have kind of a lazy Monday and that's understandable. But when it's a prolonged, when it's a want to get off of that sofa and you just can't muster up the energy to do so, that's when, as a clinician, we become a little concerned with, okay, let's look at this a little further. So I would say that just when you really lose your motivation to do even basic things, straightening up the home, showering, yeah, I've even heard, I don't feel like eating, I don't want to cook, just things that adversely affect you or your everyday living, things you used to do, and now you just cannot muster up the strength to even start a thing.
Sometimes, people may contribute to this. So maybe I'm just anemic, maybe I didn't eat well, I just have to change my diet. And they just go on and on about all of these things that perhaps it could be. Can you talk about that?
Absolutely. So there is an aspect of seasonal depression that has to do with, as I said, it can be a light deficiency. And so these are people who maybe used to walk and can't walk because of the cold, and that can affect them. But diet can affect how we feel. That was one of the things we've talked about in group, is how our foods can affect us. But what we need to be careful of is anemia. Those things most definitely have a physical effect on us and can affect us emotionally. But when the emotional piece of that starts to take control of your life, where you can't push yourself beyond it, that's where there's a concern, and there should be some more conversation around that.
And who would you recommend that they get referred to?
So a lot of times, I am a therapeutic advocate, right? So I always say, if you can, meet with a therapist once a month, even every 2 weeks, once a week, just someone that you can start to vet some of your emotions through, that doesn't have a biased impact on you. I know a lot of times, I'll have people say, well, my best girlfriend said, but when someone's almost a little too close to the situation, they tend to fill in the blanks. So they'll say,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you're all right, you got up last week, remember when we went to, they start to fill in the blanks, whereas a person who doesn't have I like to say, who doesn't have a dog in the fight, let's say, an unbiased person, can start to really hear the facts of what your days look like and start to address that. The second piece to that, Dr. Anderson, that I think is important is, for some, there are other measures that may need to take place. An example of that is medication. Sometimes your mood levels can be so low that hope and a walk and a light lamp isn't going to be,
Or
it's not,
prayer is not enough.
or your spirituality, it's not going to be enough. And so in those instances, you want someone aboard your care team, and that's what I like to call those that we put around us. You want someone on your care team that can meet that need, if necessary. I have a lot of clients that say, I don't take medication, I don't want to be on another medication, I don't want to do this for life. The reality is, you may not have to do it for an extended, prolonged period of time, but it may be necessary in this season for what you're going through. So those are options.
Thank you so much for that. And I also want to mention it's really important that our community, that they have a primary care provider, because you want to start with just a good preventative health exam where you can get your preventative health labs done. As I said, anemia can affect someone's energy level, thyroid disorders as well. So just an overall checkup once a year with your primary care provider is important. And then your primary care provider can be the one as part of your care team to link you with other services and licensed professionals that can help you. So always make sure you rule out all of the physical conditions that it can affect your mood first, and then you can move forward. So I really thank you for sharing that as well. But we don't want to beat the bandit, because we are here with solutions. We want to know from you as a healthcare provider, what are tips that you can provide to us to help us beat seasonal blues? I know every time in the wintertime, one of the things that what happens to me is I put on weight, because I love the outdoors. I love to exercise. And what happens is, now that the weather is changing, I don't get out as much. And so that is one of the things that I struggle with. And then, I intend to go to the gym. I do get that membership back in January, but then I don't follow through with it like I should. So can you share with us, as a licensed care provider, you are a member of an individual's healthcare team. What tips can you provide to our audience about how they can beat this seasonal blues?
Absolutely. Well, like you said, Dr. Anderson, I think it's really important what you said about the medical piece, because it could be a deficiency of vitamin D and some irons in your system. And that is something that can have its benefits rather rapidly. And a lot of times I think what our clients want is to feel better and feel better as quickly as possible so that they can return to their routines. So that's really important. As you see, there are plenty of rest. Now, if you've been in the bed for a week, I think you've rested.
I would love that right now.
The swing of things. But there's a difference between laying and getting true rest. So you were mentioning that your exercise tends to get cut back, and that's the reality for a lot of people. So it's implementing ways that you can get that exercise in your home. For some people, it's take 2 gallons of water or milk or whatever you have and just walk up and down your steps, maybe 10, 15 times back and forth, maybe twice a day, 3 times a day, figuring out how you can utilize the things within your home to really kind of still continue to perpetuate your health, your regimen of self-care and your exercise. I like to say also, one of the things that's good for me, because I'm like you, is I need an accountability partner. So it's really kind of linking with someone to say, hey, I really want to, feel better. I'm feeling kind of low. I think the energy my energy would come back if I kind of was a little more active. Will you be my accountability partner? Again, iron sharpens iron. So just linking with someone, again, focusing on your care team. Eating a well-balanced diet is very important. What we eat, food will dictate your mood. In the winter, we tend to do heavier things, a lot of gravies and carbs. And I understand that there's a lot of holidays in the winter that, that there's, a lot of food. I don't know how it's going to go this year, but just trying to really be, I think everything in moderation. It's a great time for soups, and soups are great because they're hearty but light. So just, Googling, we're in that great Google age where you can Google or YouTube or go to Instagram and get crock pot soup recipes or, things that won't impede your time too much. I remember my grandmom used to make soups back in the day, and that woman would be in the kitchen for what seemed like days. I don't have it. I don't have that type of time. But the beautiful thing is now there's a lot of things you can pick up at your local grocery store at Save a Lot and different places where they're already pre-cut, pre-cut carrots, pre-cut celery, and you can kind of dump it all in your crock pot and go. So those are ways. We discussed it, light. light is really important. For individuals that aren't in well-lit homes, some houses have lots of windows and you can open those windows and get the light in. Some aren't, and we respect that and understand that as well. But there's light supplements. You can change your regular light bulb to an LED light bulb. LED light bulbs give a different source of light that can affect you in a positive way. One of the things that we were learning is just changing your lights as much as possible to red-based lights, even if you can get red night lights, or remove that white light out of there and put a red light in. It will really change your mood and give you a lot more energy. Just going by the list, yes, taking walks, if you can do that around your home, if you don't want to go outside, or even going outside, again, that accountability partner, grabbing a neighbor and saying, hey, you want to just walk around the block with me twice or 3 times, and that would provide that would suffice.
Having a pet is also good for that.
A fur baby looking you in your face, like, let's go.
Yes.
The push you need.
Helps me.
Yeah. And pets are another thing. One of the aspects that we spoke about was the absence sometimes, or a loss of some sort. And a pet is great to kind of come in and be with you. Get pets, I say, be a responsible pet owner. Come in with pets that are going to meet your needs as a pet owner. You don't want a dog if you do a lot of travel. So just getting pets that, can go along with what's going on in your everyday. So, and as always, I always say, try to get a licensed therapist on hand if you can. If it's just to the point where you yourself are really having a hard time with figuring out what's the best care team for you, start with that. Get a therapist that can kind of look at your overall situation, look at some history. There are some genetic history things that can come into play, and really kind of get the best recipe, if you will, for your overall seasonal success.
Thank you so much for that. There were lots of great tips that you have shared. And again, there's so many more things that you could probably share with us as well. Most important is recognizing if you have a problem, or if you're feeling down, your emotions are really just up and down, to really take a look at, maybe this could be seasonal depression, or maybe you can be experiencing seasonal blues, to reach out to get the help you need. You do not have to suffer in silence. Thank you so much. So I just wanted to know, as a social worker, you are really great on providing resources to our clients. What would you share with us about places that we can go, or organizations or online platforms that can help an individual at least take that first step to get help or to learn more about seasonal depression?
Thank you. And I think that is important. I think that sometimes it's meeting the resource needs. Sometimes our sadness absolutely is emotional, absolutely can deal with the season, but it can be also some of our basic needs that we need. And so in Delaware, we have a great resource line called Delaware 211. You can dial 211 on your phone at any time of the day. It's 24/7. And just explain to them that you are looking maybe for a therapist, or if there's another need, a food need, or a need with some, things at your home. You need a new heater, you need things like that. Because worry and stress, those anxieties, they come in and can really switch your mood. So, one, I would always say. Also, so for those looking for therapists, you can go to Psychology Today, just Google it online. They have a filter that, everyone has their preference. Some people would prefer a female, some people would prefer a male. There's race, there's all kinds of things that is your personal preference, because you want to feel comfortable with who you speak with. So you can filter it all the way down to spiritual affiliations, to gender, to age. you can filter it all the way down to what exactly you feel is going to be a good fit for you. And then they'll give you a list of therapists in your area that will be willing to assist you and see if there's any space. Because we're in a pandemic, a lot of therapy is happening virtual, and that's really been advantageous for families and for individuals, because I know sometimes a car transportation can really come into play. Sometimes it's a situation where you're working and you have the flexibility to pull aside for maybe an hour and talk to someone over maybe your smartphone or your computer, but you really can't leave to go to an appointment. But in this era of the pandemic, we do have a lot of virtual providers, and so it kind of removes that. And then last but not least, I want us to also, in this era, there's a lot of groups. So if you're not a person to sit with someone individually and sit across from them and want to tell them everything, you do feel kind of alone in this. There are a lot of groups that you can join virtually that are people that are kind of feeling the same way you're feeling, and they can talk about some of their solutions and some of those. So it's that connectivity that sometimes makes you feel like, wait a minute, this is not just something that I experience, it's something that others are experiencing. And and so it makes it a little more human to you, and it's not you're this unicorn that just lives in this in this world all by yourself. There are others that are working through the same challenges you're working through.
I
So.
think that is really important that you shared that. And one of the things that I feel is important for our Tova members is you are not alone. And you definitely expressed that and really brought that home, is that there's so many other people that are experiencing some of the same issues and problems that you are. And it's so empowering to talk to another person or listen to someone else's perspective on how they have overcome and beat seasonal blues. And so a virtual platform, I actually think, benefits some people that don't want to sit next to someone or sit in a circle, with other people and still be able to benefit and get the information they need and to be able to share and also be provided with insight on having to move forward. So I will always say that even though we're in this pandemic, there's some good things that have come from that. We know that we can still connect with others in a different way and still benefit and get the services that we needed. Would you agree or disagree with that?
I absolutely agree with that. I think that, it's a difficult, challenging time for us, but some great benefits have come from it. And just what you were saying, for some people, because there is that concern of social distancing and being in a space with someone that you don't know, it gives you a safety behind just being in the comforts of your home and being able to, still participate in things that, speak to something that you may be going through. So it absolutely is a great way to just get in there, not isolate yourself, and really start to hear some of the solutions and people that have walked through. Or even one step further, a lot of times there's things that you have done for yourself, because what we've kind of seen is that individuals that suffer with seasonal depression or depression have been doing so for many years. And so it's just, not having the label to place on it or not knowing, but have managed throughout the years to do different things that work for you, and you having that ability to share that with someone in the group as well. So it's an exchange of receiving helpful tips and hearing and that validation, but also being able to, pour into someone else and say, hey, this is what I did and what I do, and it tends to work for me. It may work for you.
Thank you so much for this. And I have to hit you with some hard questions. So as we kind of wind down, one of the things I really want to get your perspective of is, and we also have shared a lot about that in our Tova Cares newsletter, is when prayer is not enough, why is it important to seek help from a licensed professional?
That's a great, and I think the population in which we serve, that's a big thing. As you mentioned, I work a lot with the Hispanic Hispanic community as well as the African American community. And for those communities, prayer tends to be a big piece of what they go to, respectfully so. But I think it's important, one of the things that I've shared, in the New Testament, Luke, it spoke about it several times that he was a physician. So if prayer is something and spirituality is something that you really hone in on, it's understanding that you can't accept some of the book and not all of the book. And so if God saw it important to point out the fact that he gave Luke this gift of assistive healing and of as a physician, that he gives those type of gifts to others as well. And so though prayer, it has its place, it also gives us knowledge to know when it's time to seek those that he has given a gift to. So I always say you have to go that next step as well and believe that if that is your belief that God exists and that he is able to do give gifts and bring gifts, then he can put that in other people. And so it is important to not just feel that I'm going to sit, there's a saying, faith without works is dead.
Yes, I was going to say that. I've always been taught that. My mom always shared that with me.
Absolutely. So you're believing that you are going to take the next steps necessary so that he then can, faith can play its part, but you have to act. He's not going to make you do it. You have to be willing to do it.
I think that's very important. And I just learned something today that Luke, a disciple, was a physician. I didn't know that. I think that is just
About it.
impressive.
They addressed it a few times, and I don't think that that's by happenstance. I think that that was very intentional to bring up Luke and what he did as a professional, so that we don't feel that it all has to come from the hand of God, that he gives people gifts.
And he works through so many people.
Absolutely does. Absolutely.
Yes. Thank you so much for that. And, as I definitely advocate for a holistic approach to my clients' care. And I think that putting behavioral health and mental health on the same paradigm as taking care of someone's physical health is something that I think moving forward is definitely happening in healthcare. And I like to see more of that as well. And that we value all of the members of our team, which includes our behavioral health specialists, our social workers, and even our community health workers. So I want to thank you for all that you do as well. We couldn't do it without you. But as we come to a close, one of the other issues, besides making sure that we stay spiritual and that we continue to pray, and then if we need additional help, that we seek out the help that we need if we're experiencing these symptoms of seasonal blues, is that one of the things in the African American community is that there's such a stigma and discrimination of mental illness. Can you talk about that and how that we can break that stigma?
Absolutely. I think that, a lot of times in our community, that stigma is around sometimes terminology. But I think that as a people, one of the things, there have been, sayings that we've said, African proverbs that we've used that speak to the situation, but I don't think that as people we link it to that. One of the African proverbs that we often use in our community is, it takes a village.
Mm-hmm.
It does, and a lot of times we use that to equate to the children and helping with the children, but it takes a village for us all, to lean on one another, to really reach out to one another. And that's really kind of what mental health is. It's a village of individuals that see your suffering, your emotional suffering, and we're willing to come in and give an aid in that area. So it absolutely takes a village, and your village or your care team is doctors like Dr. Anderson, clinicians such as myself and others, your spirituality, your church family, your family members. There's so many different aspects to that village. And as we know, if a piece is missing, there's not a complete support there. And so things can fall through those holes. So we want you to really look at your village and see what's missing and be okay with putting the necessary pieces in. Another thing that I love is, am I my sister's keeper? And I say, I absolutely am. And so in that, even though I'm a clinician and I assist families and support them in their mental health, I recognize that I too need that. And so I seek it. And so it's important for us to lean on one another. And the stigma that comes with the terminologies at time and the labels, I know that as a community where we don't like to be labeled, it makes us feel as though we have to stay encased in whatever that label was or is, but knowing that we can break free from that with work. And if you find yourself in a situation in which that label may have to be something that's for a long period of time, that you give power to that label and not let that label empower you. And so, I work a lot with adolescents and have seen some mental health concerns that have come with them. And they think that, well, I can't be a professional and I can't do this if I'm that. And it's saying, no, you have control over that. So that exists with you and is labeled behind who you are labeled. So if you want to be a doctor, a pediatrician, have a young lady wants to be a pediatrician, takes medication for an emotional condition that she struggles with, but is beating. I have her know that it's not the other way around. It's you who will be a physician that has beat this or has it under control, and as opposed to it has you under control. So she was able to understand that. So it's really you taking control of it and saying, despite it, because there's a lot of challenges in our community that say one thing but we conquer it and say, despite that thing, I still rise. I still get above it. And that will continue. That will continue if we don't allow it to rule over us.
Thank you so much for this great and empowering Tova Tuesday today. I guess I want to end just saying, as you said, that we can beat seasonal blues. We can beat seasonal depression. It doesn't define you. Thank you so much, Mrs. Tamara Sumpter, social worker and self-advocate of a servant's heart. Thank you for appearing on Tova Tuesday today. I'm very excited and very grateful that you shared such empowering information to our community. And I also want to say that Tova Tuesday is going to be linked to our Tova Health YouTube channel, and you can find more information about Tova Tuesday on our website at www.tovacommunityhealth.org. You can also go to our Cash App and make a donation so that we can keep these great episodes going, which is $Tova Health. And you can also go to our Instagram page as well, which is Tova Community Health. Thank you so much today for appearing on Tova Tuesday. Do you have any last minute comments to share?
No, I just would say, continue to shine and thrive. One of the things in this season is that there's a lot going on, but you have a lot to bring to the table. And so, just like you said, rise above it. And one of the things that I think about that I'd like to say is rise above it and then reach back to help that next person who may have a challenge with doing the same as you've done. So let's not live in these little silos and just get ourselves together, but help those around us. So I appreciate you for doing that.
And thank you. I appreciate you for coming on Tova Tuesday today. So thank you again for joining us on Tova Health TV with Mrs. Social Worker Extraordinaire, Tamara Sumpter. And again, you can find out more information about Tova Community Health by going to our website, which is www.tovacommunityhealth.org. And please like us on Facebook and Instagram at Tova Community Health. If you like this episode or want more like this, please donate to our Cash App, which is $Tova Health. I'm signing out today. Dr. Nina, Executive Director of Tova Community Health. You guys take care, stay healthy, and stay safe.